What would your advice be to someone who maybe thinks things aren't coming quick enough?
Yeah, my advice would actually be to sometimes realise that it's not happening because you're actually not ready, and that not as in there's anything wrong with the fact that you're not ready or the fact that you're not doing something correctly. It's just that it is that cliche of when your time is your time, it is your time. And I think that you just have to be patient. You'll realise that actually when I was crying over that X Factor that I didn't get in 2017, it's like, girl, you were not ready for that. Let's be so real, you know?
Welcome to Studio Sessions, a video series for creative performers. Each week we go behind the scenes on the shoots and sit down with guests to discuss their careers, the creative industry, and share the lessons they've learned along the way. Welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here, thank you.
How was your day today?
It was amazing. Normally I'm a nervous shooter. I don't really have much experience in it, so it was really good. Really enjoyed it. Felt super comfortable. It's good because you give us literally where exactly to go, so it was really good. I loved it.
Yeah, I like to say that it's like Twister.
Yeah, honestly, put your left hand here, right foot here. Yeah, totally.
Of course, would you like to introduce yourself to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
For sure. I'm Eryn Bates. I live in London, but I'm from Edinburgh originally, and I am a creative choreographer, professional dancer, all of the above.
Love. So from Edinburgh originally, was that where you started to dance?
Yeah, so I started from a super young age. I went to dance schools from 6 and did all your modern tap and whatever, but it was always kind of just extracurricular for me. It wasn't too much of a passion. I wasn't this is what I want to do. I didn't really get into that until I actually turned about 17. A friend of mine at school at the time was like, I'm leaving school early, I'm going to go to college and do dance. And I was like, you can do that? That's a thing? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do that too. So I decided to leave school early and went to pursue dance in college, but I still didn't know that it was what I wanted to do. I was falling more in love with it. But then I had this amazing dance teacher called Kirsty at the time, and she kind of was like, no, you really can do this. You really are great. And it was people's belief in me and that made me kind of realize one, I love it, and two, I'm actually not that bad, so I might as well give it a go. And we looked at different schools in London, and I was like, okay, let's try. So we went down and auditioned, and it ended up going really well. So then I was like, cool, I'm going to make the big move. And within a couple of months, it was time to go. So just moved.
At what point do you reckon it was? Can you think of a moment where you were like, okay, I am passionate about dance, that's going to be my thing?
I remember I had a friend as well, a different friend from school, who had moved down to Liverpool, and she went to Lipper, and I went to watch her show, and it was incredible, and I was like, oh, that is what I could be doing if I really gave this a go. So I think it was watching that and seeing what it looks like for an elevated level of dance. So the thing with training in Edinburgh at the time, it's probably way more advanced now because this was 10 years ago. The level of training wasn't so high. So it all felt quite not challenging and not I don't know, it didn't push me enough. So then when I saw that was what it was like if you were to move, I was like, oh, okay. So that was when I started feeling a bit more passionate about it, when I started realizing that it can become a career and it can become something that you can make a living off of, all of that. So. And
what did that move to London look like for you? What did that look like in terms of training, and how did you find it? Because I imagine moving from home for the first time for anyone can be quite intimidating.
Yeah.
How did that kind of whole experience unravel?
It was really scary. I mean, if it wasn't for the people that did believe in me, my mom and my dance teacher and everything, I don't think I would have had the push to do it, because it was more their idea at the time than mine. And then once I was like, oh, okay, and inspired by it, I was like, let me do this. But it was really scary because I actually auditioned for this dance school at the time. For a year-long sort of commercial course. So it was only ever really supposed to be for a year, just to see if I liked it. And when I auditioned for the school, we got in and everything was great, and then I was packed my bags ready to go, and we got an email from them saying that the school had gone into liquidation, and they'd basically taken a bunch of money from all of the people that were auditioning, and they just closed the company and ran. So I was thinking, well, what the hell am I going to do? Because now I've quit my job, I've quit college, split up with my ex, everything. I was like, I'm ready to go. And then all of a sudden this platform of the stability that I had for the school was up in the air, and because it was literally a week before, you know, I was like, I'm just going to do it anyway. And that was when I found Studio 68 at the time, and I just went straight there and was just like, cool, set myself up with a part-time job and just take class. So I was like, instead I just went straight into the commercial taking class world, and that was exactly how I trained from the day that I moved. So there was no college down here. I didn't graduate, I didn't do any of that. I just went straight class mode and have been there ever since. Yeah.
So coming to today, what was the first look that we did and what made you bring that?
The first look that we did was our gym one, and it was something I just wanted to warm up to. Like I said, I can always get a bit nervous shooting, so I was like, at least this is kind of something a bit chill, you know, you can do a couple stretches or whatever. So I did the gym one, which I think is a good one to have in your portfolio, because then I feel like you can send that off to different sort of campaigns or whatever they might be looking for. So it was important for me to try something like that.
I think like going into a shoot with, I always say to people, like, save your favourite to like later on, because I think if you go straight into it, you kind of need to build up your confidence, and having like a warm-up look or one that's a bit more stripped back can always be a really nice way to kind of like introduce you to it, especially because when the look you're least hyped about looks great, then it means like, oh, amazing, like for the second and third and fourth, it's going to just get better and better and better.
Totally. That's exactly how it went. It felt at the beginning I was a bit like, because obviously again it's a new space, you're in the studio, you don't know, you're not familiar, especially if you haven't shot with somebody before. So then it gives you time to warm up to how like each other, you get to know each other a little bit. So I feel like, and then by the time we got to the last look, I'm like,
cool. So coming back to your career, so not going down a traditional college route, what would your advice be to someone who maybe doesn't want to go to college, or someone who's kind of moved into the dance space but hasn't gone to college and now they're competing against people who've kind of got that degree or got that?
Right. I think you just have to show as much of a hunger as the kids that are coming out of college, because I think that these kids get let out of college and they're like ready, you know, and they're seasoned, and so the same amount of work that they put in whilst they're at college, you have to be doing on your own. So still go to the technique classes. I think your foundational jazz, ballet are super, super important. I think they can create some really great dancers. So I think it's definitely about almost training as if you were at a college, but you're doing like your own work, you know. But the advantage that you might have by not going to college is that you can get into these choreographer spaces a lot quicker. You know, all you are doing is taking their classes, so you can start to build those relationships like earlier than someone that might be in college. So you can use things like that to your advantage, but I definitely think you should train as if you're at college anyway.
Yeah, and I think having that kind of like varied timetable for yourself is obviously like super important, because it could just be, well, I'll go to this class that I love all the time, but kind of making sure that there's those other aspects that you are building, and almost like mimicking what would happen in college but taking it onto your own.
Definitely, because even going back to what I said before about me being in college and it being like slightly less advanced, it wasn't like, I remember coming down and seeing like an Ardang show, and the kids in first year were doing like quadruple pirouettes and I was still doing step ball change. Like it was like so completely advanced that it still gave me a lot. It still was super beneficial to the way that I now still dance, and even though maybe the timeline was a little bit slower or whatever, it's still super beneficial. So I think still getting yourself into a ballet class and a jazz class and stretching and all that, because then you're only going to open up more avenues for yourself when you go to auditions and you're competing with these kids that are unbelievably technical. You can still hold your own. You might not be as good because you don't have a teacher behind you knocking your leg or, you know, whatever. It's still, you still want to be able to hold your own, even just a little bit.
Yeah. And how do you kind of maintain that discipline? Because obviously if you're at college, someone's telling you, someone's like, here's the timetable, go and do these things.
Like attendance. And,
You don't have that when you're on your own. How do you make sure that you're kind of keeping up with what you need to be doing and kind of like working part-time or like going to the gym and doing all the other things that are kind of involved in a career?
Right. I think I'd done stuff that when I first moved, I made sure that I had a job that tied up with class timetables. So obviously most classes these days are like evening or always have been kind of evening times. So I'd make sure that I work morning hours, or if I work in the weekends because there's not much more classes going off on the weekends. So you try and find, like, build your own timetable, and it is literally the word discipline. Like, you have to stick at it and make sure that you're, if you want to be in a certain place, then you have to do that. Like, you have to stick to it.
Yeah, nice. So moving on to the second look from today, what was that and what made you bring that?
The second look, I wanted to go for something like warm colours, something that I would typically wear actually in like everyday settings. It was nice as well, showed a bit of legs and chunky boots, so it was that kind of like streetwear, warmer kind of tone to it, which I really loved,
When you put together your outfits, what was it you kind of thinking in terms of like how to reflect your own personality and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's super important because I think I would want to wear something that makes me feel confident so that when I'm in the space, the pictures turn out better because it's not something that I'm not used to wearing. Obviously, you should push the boat sometimes and go for something a little bit more out there. But I think that when you look at other people's pictures as well and you see that that's like, oh, that is something that they would wear, or like that is so them. I think it's super important to do that.
So talking about personalities, how do you kind of meet different people and kind of network with people within the industry?
I think it's just putting yourself out there. I think at the beginning, for me, it was quite scary because I was just this random from Scotland that had just moved, and it was like, I don't go up to someone at the end of the class and thank you so much. But it can be quite scary, but I think over time it's gradual and it's, you know, even sometimes the people that you meet at the very beginning are there at the very beginning, and then you continue to meet other people and move around and try different classes. And I think you find your people by common interests, isn't it? So you go to one class and you meet someone and realise that they love that style too. So you often see them and it's like, next week let's go together. Or I think, it's just about putting yourself in the spaces and going up to people and saying thank you for class and being consistent in those areas also, because then obviously they'll just recognise you and you'll keep coming back and they'll be like, oh, there's this person again. It becomes hi, and then it's like, should we go for a drink after class and whatever? Or so I think it's good to push yourself to like make sure that you...
And how would you say those relationships have impacted your time like being in London?
Oh, massively. I don't think I would have stayed as long as I have if it wasn't for, because I've managed to sustain such long-term relationships since I've been here, and it's also super important for me to be around the people that make me feel like this is home. Otherwise you miss home and you want to go back. So massively, I mean, I've trained under London's like best from the very beginning. Like Sean Niles was such a major part of my training when I first moved. Kimmy Taylor, Cisco Gomez, Cash, like all these people took me like under their wing, you know, and I really loved training with them and was constantly going to them for advice and going to like their programs and things like that. And then, you know, you build friendships with these people as well, and then suddenly it's like, oh, these people that I worshipped when I first moved are now like my friends. Like this is crazy. So it's really cool, and I think that it's super important to have solid people around you that can push you and challenge you and guide you and also be like your biggest cheerleader and help you out when you need it. So
kind of talking about how you got into teaching now, what was that kind of like first step? What were the first classes that you taught, and how did you kind of first approach, I'm going to be a teacher?
I kind of fell into it. I didn't to be fair, from being completely honest, when I first started teaching, it was like I wanted something outside of a part-time job. So I was working in a bar, in a restaurant, doing all that kind of stuff that I wasn't really enjoying. So I was like, I want to be able to lessen the hours there and try and find another kind of job that is also going to fill into teaching. So I found this teaching role called At Your Beat. It was like a studio that is all for beginner students. And I was lucky enough to have a friend that plugged me in and told me, like, you should come and teach for these guys. So it was all beginners, and I was just teaching 2-hour like weekly classes a week that were just an hour long. One was like a kind of commercial style, and one was like more heels fundamentals. So it was that was where I started. I
think that's a really good thing to take away from it, is the fact that yes, you might have been being pushed creatively, but like you're getting better at teaching. And I think like sometimes people probably forget that being a good teacher is the first part of being a teacher.
100,000%. And I think that's maybe sometimes where people might think that teaching is just something that anybody can do. And whilst it is, because you can practice at it, I think you need to build, same way you build a foundation of your dance skills is building a foundation of your teaching skills. There's so much more that goes into it than just teaching steps or teaching choreography that you've made. Like, you know, I think it's about delivering an actual class that can impact somebody's day or even like their life, you know. I think it's super important to be able to, people have different learning styles. So if you go in and someone likes learning by counts, then you have to be able to deliver that. If someone likes learning by lyrics, then you have to be able to, like, there's so many different things that you have to be able to cater to within a class that make somebody a good teacher. Anybody can teach, but not everybody's a good teacher.
And what would your advice be to someone who's getting into teaching now? Like, kind of some things you've learned along the way that can kind of like help them get there?
I think my main advice would be to start super simple, because I think if you go straight into trying to teach really intricate choreography, because you might be an amazing choreographer, but also, again, it doesn't make you like a great teacher, you know. So I think maybe start like simpler. You could get in a studio session with your friends and try to teach them, try a beginner's class, all those things, because I think those are great ways to strip it back and become someone that can deliver like a super simple routine. In terms of actually delivering a class, or, you know, if you might just be starting, I think it's super important that you understand your counts and like your music that you're teaching to. So start to deliver a really clear class, so that it's not like rushing through, or you're just going from 5, 6, 7, 8, you're just going to do this, you're just going to do this, and da-da-da. It's like really explaining, giving details. Something that always helps people enjoy a class is if you were to actually go up to somebody and be like, try this, or, you know, you can see that somebody's leg is turned a slightly different way. So saying to somebody like, try this, and then suddenly they're like, oh, like just small, always having small little nuggets of information to give somebody of like what part of your body they should be attacking something with, or, you know, really breaking it down. Because even the intricate choreo needs to be, and you're still teaching it to advanced dancers. If you want them to be incredible, then they need to like learn from somebody that's helping them be that way, you know. And I think obviously another thing is it's just super important to be super enthusiastic about it. Delivering a class and being all nonchalant and I just think is a bit like, you know,
that energy is contagious. I feel like the more energy you put into something, the more you're going to get back, and the more everyone's going to feel. So if you turn up and you're a bit miserable one day, the room's going to feel that, and the whole vibe's going to just drop. Especially
if you're just starting, you know, because I feel often, because I've been doing it for so long now, if I go into a class, I'm like, guys, I'm feeling a bit, I'm always honest. I'll be like, guys, I'm feeling a bit like I've got a headache or something, and they're usually like, oh, don't worry, and then they'll bring more energy for you, because you build up like people that end up really liking, you know, they come to your class because they like you, so they enjoy being in your space, which means if you are feeling a bit bummy and you tell them, they're gonna support you through that, because, you know, they come all the time. Whereas if they don't know you, you have to let them get to know you as a person. So bringing your personality to teaching as well is super important. Don't just walk in a bit 5, 6, 7, 8. Like.
I suppose it's a relationship, isn't it, between like you and whoever's like coming to the class. And if you went on a first date and someone was really miserable, you'd be like, probably won't want to see them again. But if you've been going to see someone for months or years and you've seen the ups and downs, you're like, okay, it's a real person.
You appreciate,
like, this is just a down week, but I know what they're like the rest of the time. So I suppose, making sure that if it's someone's first time, they see you in the best possible light in that way. So moving on to the third look from today, what was that and what made you bring that?
So the third look was probably, it was my favourite. I found these jeans that I am totally obsessed with, but they are like stitched into tracksuit bottoms. And immediately when I saw them, I thought, that is me in a pair of trousers. If I don't live in tracksuit bottoms, I'm living in baggy jeans. Like, I'm not much of a person that wears like tight tailor clothes. Everything I wear is very streetwear, very baggy. So I was like, this is perfect. This really shows off my personality. And I styled it with this white shirt to then kind of structure it a little bit more on the top, and then we put this blue sort of, it kind of looked like a, what would you call it, like a I would say sweater, but it would be a cropped sweater without the shirt.
Sleeveless sweater.
And to me, it kind of, what I loved about it, and when I put it on, I realised it looks like a really cool kid's school uniform, which I was obsessed with. So I was like, I look like a 28-year-old in a school uniform. Like, I kind of like it. So it kind of felt very youthful, and it had, compared to the other khaki look that we did, it was a lot more cool toned, which is cool. So I enjoyed that process as well, and looking back at those pictures, because I thought they looked really clean and kind of marbly, almost like a minty. That's how they felt. I really liked the look. I thought it was cool.
So moving on to your choreography now, like, how is it that you kind of got into choreographing stuff, and how do you kind of piece something together?
Or like the choreographic process kind of vibe. I started in my living room. My first piece of choreo I ever made was this random heels piece in my living room, and I was just chucking stuff together. Like, it was just like, this looks cool, or this looks cool. My friend's like, yeah, that looks great. And ever since then, that's been just how I choreograph. I started, it was mainly when I was at home, but I love getting in the studio with a couple of my friends and doing it that way, and we just play the song and fool around, and I'm like, yeah, that looks good, or they were like, yeah, this looks great, why didn't you try this? So I actually choreograph with people around me because I feel like I can see it on somebody else's body, or I can see how it looks as a collective. If there's like 6 or 7 of us or whatever, I can see how it would look like in a class setting. Sometimes when it's just on yourself, it might feel great on your own, but then you put it on somebody else and it doesn't feel the same way to them. So yeah, and then depends on the song for me. If I find a song and I cannot stop listening to it, it's because I'm like, okay, I can envision it straight away. Like, I'll be on the tube with it in my headphones, like picturing this choreo, like I know exactly what I want to do, the vibe I want to bring. But then there's some weeks that I get in the studio and I have this song that I've been loving, and it takes a lot longer. There's just stuff's coming out that you're just not really liking or whatever. So then I'll sit on it and go back to it another time or whatever. But because I've only just started teaching my proper classes in the last year, I feel like my creativity is just like, like it's just came flying out, and I've just loved every single week. So yeah, I'd like to just get in the studio with my friends and have fun.
And how did you take that transition from kind of teaching beginners to moving into kind of teaching your own professional class?
It kind of was a really smooth process. I knew that with teaching the beginners, I absolutely loved it. I did it for about 3 or 4 years, but I was kind of feeling like I needed to push myself a little bit more choreographically. I feel like I don't want to say satisfied, because I love my job, but I wanted to feel what it would be like to push myself choreographically and also see what my choreography would look like on a professional, you know? It'd be like a lot more inspiring for me at the time. And I was covering some classes at base that were going very well, and people were seeing the reception of my choreo was going down quite well. I asked base for a slot, and they actually put me on the wait list. I was on a wait list for 6 months before I actually got my class. And the only reason I got the class is because my friend Ashley, she was leaving her slot, and she kind of was like, I want to give it to Erin, let me give it to her. So Ashley gave me her slot, and then from there it just was insane.
And what did that first class look like, and do you remember it?
It was, yes, I do. I think it was August last year. I taught an Angels in Tibet choreo, and it was really thrashy and full out, which is exactly my favourite kind of thing. And I remember putting the class out, saying I was starting my own class, and everyone was super excited. And then before class, you can go on your phone and you can look at how many people are signed up, so you kind of know what you're getting on for. And I woke up in the morning and there was not many people. There was only 3 or 4, and I was like, oh damn, no. And then I think the class was at 5:30 p.m. I checked it again at 2 o'clock and it was sold out. And I was like, mad. Whoa. And then taught the class, and from there obviously I got a great video of everybody doing it, put it up online. Again, reception went crazy, and then it fell on week after week. It was selling out, and I was just, where has this come from? I couldn't even believe it. But because I was so excited to keep sharing, I just wanted to get in the studio every week and make something that everybody was going to love, and that would continue to keep that ball rolling, which has exactly been my aim from the beginning of August last year. But yeah, I left that class finally, this is exactly what I wanted. And
what would your advice be to someone who's looking to start a class now to help build that into something that's kind of sustainable?
I think covering is a great way to start. If you find somebody that gets their class covered quite often, just say to them, look, whenever you need a class, I'm down to cover, so that you get that repertoire. You start building a repertoire of choreography, so that when people go to your Instagram, because obviously, let's be real, that people now look at someone's choreo before they go to the class. Most of the time now they're like, oh, let me see their style and decide whether they want to go. So if you don't have any material on your page, it's not gonna, people probably aren't gonna be so likely to come. Whereas if you start building that by either covering people's classes and posting the footage, or getting in the studio and putting it on dancers and on yourself to get in the studio and film it and put it online and have that 4, 5, 6 videos of different choreos, will help when you do eventually start your own class, that people are like, oh, they've already got something going on. They've already got, something that's not just like starting from a
Yeah,
basis.
I think that's good advice for anyone creatively, because I think when you're starting anything, like there's always going to be a period where you don't have anything in your portfolio compared to when you have loads.
Yeah.
And people are going to judge you based on what's there. So the quicker you can build a portfolio of work that people can come and consume and be like, what is this vibe? The quicker people are going to make a decision if they want to become a part of it or not.
Yeah.
So I think, sometimes it's going to feel like a grind at the start, but then once you've kind of gone through it and it becomes a bit of a routine, it's like, oh, actually, there's a massive portfolio.
Because then word travels as well, and next week this person will bring their friend, or they'll tell another person, and then that person will go, and once they come once, they're probably going to come again and again, and it is a thing of the proof has to be in the pudding,
Yeah.
for someone to be like, I want to buy that. Quite simple,
Yeah, definitely. So on to our last look from today. What was that, and what made you bring that?
So this was like an all black, very chic, kind of silky blazer with the classic tights, classic pump. It was something that was missing in my portfolio that I think is a staple for everybody, that is just shows a clean, boxy kind of shape that you could probably use universally. You could use it for any kind of casting or audition or whatever. So yeah, that one was really fun. We had the fan on, hair was going, super fun. So, yay! Thank you so much.
So kind of going forward, what's the plan for the future?
I just want to keep having fun. I feel like at the beginning when I moved and into probably the last like 5-6 years before like the last year, I feel as though I put too much pressure on everything. Everything was so like, I have to be at this place at this time, and why is it not happening for me yet, and everything like that. So I think my ambition now, it's only been in the last year that when I've really just started having fun and letting the pressure go, that the ball has started rolling and things have started happening. So it's just to enjoy life as a dancer, because it can be so difficult, it can be so tedious and lonely at times. So I think we have to just enjoy it. So my ambition is to have fun, travel. I want to travel the world. I want to teach all over the world. I want to start stepping more into just who I am and my place in the industry, and keep pushing that.
What would your advice be to someone who maybe thinks things aren't coming quick enough?
Yeah, my advice would actually be to sometimes realise that it's not happening because you're actually not ready, and that not as in there's anything wrong with the fact that you're not ready or the fact that you're not doing something correctly. It's just that it is that cliche of when your time is your time, it is your time. And I think that you just have to be patient. I know like it's super hard, but it's just like the rejections for things will start to come easier. It'll start to feel less personal. So I think it's about patience. Just give yourself time and try not to be hard on yourself or have like a sad mentality when you miss out on these jobs or you miss out on these gigs. Is because only when it does come and when it does happen, the reward is going to feel so much sweeter, because you've worked so hard for it and because you've been tenacious and you've really stuck it out and you've really went for it, that it will feel so much better. So just look forward to that for when it does happen, that you'll be like, okay, cool, finally. And you'll realise that actually when I was crying over that X Factor that I didn't get in 2017, it's like, girl, you were not ready for that. Let's be so real, So I think, know that as long as you are pushing yourself and you're putting yourself in the right places and you are going for it, it is going to happen. And it will happen in the way that's specific to you. Don't even look at anybody else's journey, because there's no point. It's different for everybody.
Boom. Thank you so much. This has
No
been great.
problem. Thank you. Yay. Smashed it. That was fun.
Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this episode, please share it. If you want to see more of these, click subscribe. And if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask, just drop them in the comments below. See you in the next session.